As the coronavirus continues to spread, so are different conspiracy theories going viral. Conspiracy theories about Bill Gates' Antichrist agenda have taken the form of Christian eschatology. Oh, the end times are here. The devil is about to take over. The world is coming to an end. These are some of the most discussed topics on social media in the African space today. In these past weeks, Bill Gates have been trending on different social media platforms with many conspiracy theories either claiming he's plotting to use the COVID-19 testing or a future vaccine to track people with microchips, that is, implanting everybody with a kind of a global ID. And those who believe in ideas like the earth is flat have begun to call this the mark of Satan. Meanwhile, in Africa, one of the most trending headlines as we speak is the "I see dead bodies all over the streets of Africa" doom prediction of Bill Gates' wife, Melinda Gates, which has provoked widespread public outrage in Africa. But before we continue, let's quickly take a look at this video.
It's going to be horrible in the developing world. And part of the reason you're seeing the case numbers still don't look very bad is because they don't have access to very many tests. So, look at Ecuador. Look at what's going on in Ecuador. They're putting bodies out on the street. You're going to see that in countries in Africa.
Was she predicting or pronouncing imminent doom for Africa? Or do you think her statement was taken out of context? Just keep watching as we go through this important topic this week. Then you will say what you think. I'm Sunday Christopher AIMUAMWOSA, and you are welcome back to Prime Reporters TV. In this era when false alarms, exaggerated warnings, and intentional scare tactics are being used by some deceptive individuals, corporations, politicians, and even religious leaders to mislead, hoodwink, and hoax people, it's sometimes above one's head to separate true warnings from inanity or differentiate between the two. With the coronavirus pandemic still defying global efforts to curb its spread, a lot of conspiracy theorists have taken to social media and other platforms to spread messages claiming that Bill Gates' effort to help develop a vaccine is some kind of nefarious attempt to control, follow, or even depopulate the world's population, especially Africa's, via a microchip of some sort. On Friday, the 10th of April, Melinda Gates, the wife of Bill Gates, was interviewed by a CNN reporter on CNN. And when she was asked about how she felt personally seeing the high rate of African Americans infected with the virus, here's what she said.
When I saw what China had to do to isolate such an enormous part of their population, my first thought was Africa. How in the world are they going to deal with this? I've been in townships all over Africa in slums. When we talk about in our country physical distancing and then hand washing, if you live in a slum, you can't physical distance. You have to go out and get your meal. You don't have clean water to wash your hands. And so as soon as I saw that, and we know from the foundation's work how quickly disease spreads, I thought, oh my gosh, we have a crisis on our hands that we aren't even talking about yet in the United States and what's going to happen to the rest of the world.
And with a follow-up question, the reporter asked, that's how much worse it's going to be in developing world? And here's her response.
It's going to be horrible in the developing world. And part of the reason you're seeing the case numbers still don't look very bad is because they don't have access to very many tests. So, look at Ecuador. Look at what's going on in Ecuador. They're putting bodies out on the street. You're going to see that in countries in Africa.
Hardly had she finished the interview when news headlines began to flash all over Africa. People began to accuse her in different social media platforms of predicting and pronouncing doom for Africa, with headlines such as "I see dead bodies in the streets of Africa" and "Africa will soon have dead bodies lying on the streets," among others. Two videos by two popular Nigerian figures, one of a Nollywood actor Kingsley Okechukwu and the other of a Nigerian politician and former minister Femi Fani-Kayode, vilifying Melinda Gates for wanting Africans dead, are among the ones that stuck out. Please take a look at these videos.
I just stumbled on a publication about Bill Gates' wife, Melinda. I'm pretty sure you may have seen that, a quote from that statement somewhere on social media. I think she was on CNN during an interview session, and she said, "I see dead bodies in the streets of Africa." That's Melinda Gates. And here's the real quote here. It says, "My heart is in Africa. I'm worried. The only reason why the reported cases of the coronavirus disease in Africa is low now is most likely because there have not been wide testing of people. So why should corona wait until there is wide testing of people before it begins to manifest in Africans?" Melinda Gates is telling you and I that the reason we haven't started seeing dead bodies piling up on the streets is because they have not started the wide testing of people in Africa for coronavirus. What is in those test kits that will make them to now spike the coronavirus cases in Africa?
A lady by the name of Melinda Gates, the wife of Bill Gates, made a statement just yesterday saying that she sees dead bodies all over the streets of Africa. Now, I want to tell you this, that there's a spiritual principle involved here. When you say you see dead bodies all over the streets of Africa, you are actually projecting that, and it's a spiritual principle. Now, she has made her pronouncement. We know what she wants to do. We know what her husband is doing. We know what their plan is concerning their magic vaccine, which is actually designed to cull the population of the world. And I will say this to Melinda Gates and to Bill Gates. The Bible says, "Who is he that saith a thing, and it cometh to pass, when the Lord God of hosts has commanded it not?" It is not in the streets of Africa that you will see dead bodies. We reject it, and we return it back to you and those that sent you.
Before we go into the contents of these videos, let's talk about the use of quotation marks in grammar. Quotation marks are used to indicate material that is being reproduced verbatim, that is, word for word, which means you are rewriting or quoting the actual words or text of a person. And in this case, the first person pronoun I is used. For example, "I see dead bodies in the streets of Africa." That's a direct speech. And this is different from a reported or indirect speech that expresses the content of statements, questions, or other utterances without quoting exactly what the speaker said, like she said she saw dead bodies in the streets of Africa. So if we then grammatically took an open-minded look at what these little fellas wrote or are saying, and also most of these news headlines flashing all over Africa, it would be clear to us that they have falsely attributed these quotes to Miss Gates because she didn't use those exact words, "I see dead bodies in the streets of Africa." Rather, here's what she said.
You know, look at Ecuador. Look at what's going on in Ecuador. They're putting bodies out on the street. You're going to see that in countries in Africa.
And she didn't use these exact words either.
The only reason why the reported cases of the coronavirus disease in Africa is low now is most likely because there have not been wide testing of people.
But here's what she said.
And part of the reason you're seeing the case numbers still don't look very bad is because they don't have access to very many tests.
Then the expression, "the disease is going to bite hard on the continent," is what baffles me. It gets me confused because I don't know where Mr. Okechukwu got that from. At least Miss Gates didn't say that in this interview. Or maybe it was a comment she made elsewhere, maybe in another interview. But for the fact that her name was written after those quotation marks means that she has been misquoted. And to misquote someone means to reproduce what someone said or wrote in a way that is not correct. And in the English language, there is something we call argument from false premises. An argument from false premises is a line of reasoning which can lead to wrong results. A false premise is an incorrect proposition that forms the basis of an argument. And since the premises, that is the assumption, is not correct, then the conclusion drawn from that argument may also be wrong. But when celebrities or people with influence say something, people tend to listen even if what they are saying is complete rubbish. And like one of my viewers remarked last week in my previous episode, the link is up here. He talked about confirmation bias. That is another reason people tend to prefer dubious information that supports their pre-existing beliefs, and they are more inclined to reject valid information that challenges those beliefs. And another ludicrous point Mr. Okechukwu raised while panic-beating Ms. Gates' statement is this. Please watch.
What is in those test kits that will make them to now spike the coronavirus cases in Africa? Now, Bill Gates' wife, Melinda, is helping us to connect the dots that I have been talking about and screaming about all over media. Test kits with such a horrible history that we have seen with our eyes in the media, and they still brought them to Africa, and they are still in Africa. They are in Nigeria. And Melinda is now saying, hey, you watch. You're not seeing it now, but you're going to see those dead bodies very soon when they start testing with their test kits.
You can't fight the virus if you don't know where it is. These were the words of the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, at his briefing on the COVID-19 pandemic in mid-March. And in late March, 5 South American experts led by Enrique Acosta wrote a paper where they warned the Caribbean and Latin American governments to increase the COVID-19 test coverage to mitigate the humanitarian impact of the virus. They warned that not testing for the virus may result in cases not being detected, which would make it difficult to isolate, trace, and contact people with the disease. It's no coincidence Latin American and Caribbean countries with the most tests per capita, for example, Chile, Panama, and Costa Rica, are also those with the most known cases of COVID-19, not because there was something in the test kits, but because cases were detected. And these countries are best informed on how to tackle the pandemic by isolating and providing care to contagious individuals, allocating resources to the worst hit areas, and breaking chains of contagion by tracing back the steps of infected individuals. Because right from the beginning, the World Health Organization had been emphasizing that countries must test for the virus. They made it clear that we can't fight this virus blindly. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus said, and I quote, "We advise countries to stick to testing and continue with containment strategy because we believe this virus is controllable if the right measures are taken." End quote. But Mr. Okechukwu here is wondering why the coronavirus should wait to be tested for before it manifests, or if there is something in those test kits that will spike up the coronavirus cases in Africa. A data report by Joe Hassel and some other experts on the 31st of March explained the importance of testing. The report reads, and I quote, "Testing is our window onto the pandemic and how it's spreading. Without testing, we have no way of understanding the pandemic. To understand the global pandemic, we need global testing." End quote. In the US, over 3.1 million people have been tested. Hence, the numbers are very high. Not because these people were infected while being tested, but because cases were detected. In Africa, there are a lot of people who are sick with various sicknesses or diseases, but because these sicknesses have not been detected, these people, they die in silence, they die with those sicknesses. Now, with all these available documents, facts, data, and videos. One would think that the answer to Mr. Okechukwu's question had already been answered even before he asked them. But that's not all he said. He also said, please watch.
In Nigeria, as of today, we have between 6 to 7 fatalities. Only 6 to 7 in a nation of over 200 million people. In all of Africa, I'm not even sure we've had more than 50, 60 cases. The whole of Africa, nearly 1 billion people.
Well, I'm not sure where Mr. Okechukwu is getting his figures from or what he meant by only 6 to 7 fatalities in Nigeria. Because according to the NCDC on Sunday, the 12th of April, the day he published his video, the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria was 323, with 85 recoveries and 10 fatalities. He also said in Africa he's not sure if there are more than 50 to 60 cases. But according to the information on COVID-19 Africa overview, there were over 14,000 cases with over 2,800 recoveries and 788 fatalities. Once again, his figures and statistics are wrong, an argument from false premises. But let's hear more.
Jack Ma has sent kids to Africa, to one of the richest continents on earth.
Here, he accuses Jack Ma of quickly sending testing kits to Africa, one of the richest continents on earth. Well, according to the International Monetary Fund, Africa is the poorest continent in terms of GDP per capita. Don't get me wrong, not in terms of natural resources, but economically. So once again, he's wrong. And he also said, and I quote, all of the testing kits that were sent to different countries in Europe turned out to be infected with the coronavirus, end quote. Well, these are very serious allegations. Many countries in Europe indeed received faulty testing kits from China, but none of them was reported in any mainstream media to be infected with the coronavirus, but that the kits were faulty, they couldn't detect the virus. And then he went ahead to say an American professor was angry that Ebola didn't kill enough Africans. This information couldn't be verified, and he didn't give any plausible reference for someone to be able to verify this information. We can go on and on because in his 29 minutes, 33 seconds long video, he did not refer to any reliable or credible source. Yet, the same video has been shared over 2,200 times with over 16,000 views and 430 comments on Facebook and over 28,000 views on YouTube since Sunday the 12th of April. Now, for some of us out there, we may not understand the situation in Ecuador or what Miss Gates meant when she feared Africa shouldn't be like Ecuador. In case you haven't seen what is happening there, please take a look at this video.
Cesar Alvarez lost his mother a week ago to COVID-19. Now he simply wants to bury her.
Hijo del fallecido Alejo Napoleón Merchán Galarza, 8 días aquí, señores.
Did you see the images in that video? Did you see those kids crying after their daddy? For those people in that video, food is the least of their worries. Lockdown is the least of their worries. Palliative is the least of their worries. Now, one may wonder how a 29-33 minutes video loaded with fallacious comments and misleading analysis gets so much attention and engagement on social media. One may be prompted to ask, do we Africans really want to be this gullible and credulous? With gullibility and credulity, I mean how we think, the level of proof we need before accepting information as valid. Although sharing social knowledge is the foundation of our evolutionary success, but not everything we hear from others is valid or even useful. Now, let's summarize the messages in those videos. Mr. Fani Kayode made it clear to Ms. Gates that her predictions over Africa has spiritual significance, and he prayed against it and said it won't befall Africa. But he failed to refer to some spiritual leaders' prediction that the coronavirus will disappear before March 27. But it didn't happen, even though it was spiritually declared. With all the yearly prophetic declarations with spiritual significance, the status quo in Nigeria is still unspeakable. And one may now wonder why it's Miss Gates' prediction that we killed the whole of Africa. Pastors year in, year out have spiritual declaration, prophetic declarations from God about Nigeria. But the case in Nigeria is still disheartening. And on the other hand, the only solution Mr. Okechukwu could provide was some bank details at the end of his video to solicit for funds from Nigerians whom God has laid it in their hearts to donate money to help feed the poor. In other words, he wants people to donate money to him so that he can feed the poor, because those people can't feed the poor by themselves. Those people, they don't know their neighbors who are needy, but he knows them, so he can reach out more to their neighbors than they can do by themselves. With the absence of valid proof and credible references, both videos lack logical, scientific, and even religious reasoning. These guys failed to provide any solution that will help curb the spread of the virus, apart from hoping that God will someday save us. Rather, they try to dissuade Africans from testing for the coronavirus because Jack Ma, Bill Gates, Melinda Gates want to infect Africans with the virus. Social media activists, influencers, and self-styled warriors are using their social media platforms and fringe websites to proliferate misinformation, propagate conspiracy theories, and promote the denial of COVID-19. One has to be very careful. Search for correct information. Go to the World Health Organization's website and find out any information you want to know. If there is any video or any blog, any article about the COVID-19, verify the source of the information. Who is talking? How good or how expert is this person in that feed? Or you see any video, any image, try to make a reverse image search. Look for it. For example, I saw a video, a press conference of the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria saying that there was no coronavirus case in Nigeria. There was no Nigerian affected with the coronavirus in Nigeria or in China. I saw this like 2 days ago. And people started to say, oh, so Nigeria has been lying. So there is no coronavirus case in Nigeria. And through reverse image search, I discovered that this was actually a press conference, but that wasn't held the day before yesterday, but it was held before the first case of coronavirus was confirmed in Nigeria in late February. But the people who put this out made it look as if there is no case, that this guy was saying this right now, as in he was saying that the day before yesterday, and that there is no case of coronavirus in Nigeria. This is misinformation. So it is very, very imperative that we verify information. When any blogger, when any influencer, when any celebrity, whoever the person is, whenever they come to the social media platform to make videos or say something, always try to verify. Even before you rush to start to comment, try to verify the information with facts. You have your Google, you have everything. Try to look for facts, try to look for references, or ask them to provide references so that you can verify those things. But if you cannot verify them, you believe them, that is gullibility. That's it again for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope you liked this video. And if you didn't like it, please don't worry, continue watching, and someday you will like what I say. And please leave a comment, like, and share. And don't also forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. You get notified as soon as they are published. Thank you very much, and see you next week.